We drove cross-country to visit my son. When we arrived, my daughter-in-law claimed we hadn't confirmed the visit and told us to sleep in the car. That morning, she walked out to get coffee and found us gone, but what we left behind in the mailbox ruined her reputation. I'm a 64-year-old woman, and this happened last October. I'm still not over it. My husband Alan and I live in Missoula, Montana. We're both retired. He used to be a contractor, and I worked as a nurse for over 30 years. We're quiet people. We don't ask for much, and we don't like to stir the pot. But what happened last year made me question everything about our relationship with our son and his wife. Our son Nate moved to Palo Alto, California, about 5 years ago. He married Camila 2 years after he got settled there. We always tried to be supportive, even though Camila has always been distant, polite but cold. She never seemed interested in getting to know us beyond what was required. I told myself it was just her personality, that maybe she just wasn't close to her own family and didn't know how to connect. I let it go for a long time. We visited them a few times. They've also come to stay with us, but not often. Camila always looked uncomfortable when she was in our home, like everything was too old, too quiet, too small town. Still, we made an effort. Sent cards. Called on birthdays. Offered help when they had their son, our grandson. We bought gifts and offered to fly out to help with the baby. Camila said no, that her mother would be handling it. I didn't take it personally. At least not at first. In August of last year, I reached out to Camila about visiting them sometime in October. I texted her, said we'd love to drive down and spend a weekend with them, maybe take them out for dinner, spoil our grandson a little. She said, and I quote, "That should probably be okay. Just let us know the dates closer to." So I did. I texted her again in late September and told her we were planning to arrive Friday, October 14th in the evening. She didn't reply. A week went by. I sent another message, just a light one. Just checking if our plans still work. Looking forward to seeing you. No answer. I tried calling the Sunday before we left. She didn't pick up. I left a voicemail, repeating that we'd be there Friday night. At that point, I should have maybe gotten the hint, but I figured people get busy. She'd always been kind of bad at texting back. I assumed, stupidly, that she would tell us if something had changed. I didn't want to pressure Nate either. He works long hours, and I didn't want to cause problems. So we packed up the car. It took us 2 days with breaks to get down there. We brought a trunk full of gifts for our grandson, including a tricycle we'd saved up for. I baked banana bread, the kind Nate used to love when he was a kid. Alan made sure the oil was changed and the tires were good. He's very careful like that. We pulled into their street around 6:30 p.m. on Friday. The sun was just setting, and I remember feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. I held the bread in my lap, like it was made of glass. Alan parked in front of their house. Their lights were on. Their car was in the driveway. We got out, stretched our stiff legs, and walked up to the door. Camila opened it. Her face didn't change when she saw us. She just stood there. "What are you doing here?" she said, not rude exactly, but not friendly either. I smiled and held up the bread. "We texted you. We're here for the weekend, Friday through Sunday. I brought your favorite." Camila raised her eyebrows. "I don't remember confirming any dates. I thought you were still figuring things out." "We sent a few texts," Alan said. "Even left a voicemail. We figured it was settled." She crossed her arms. "Well, Nate's working late. I didn't know you were coming. The guest room isn't ready. This weekend isn't great, honestly." I blinked. "We just drove 2 days to get here." She shrugged. "I mean, maybe you should get a hotel?" Alan was already turning back to the car. He didn't say a word. I stood there, frozen. My hands were shaking. I dropped the banana bread. She didn't even flinch. I asked quietly, "You're not going to let us stay?" Camila looked uncomfortable, but didn't back down. "I don't think it's a good idea right now." Then she said this, and I will never forget it. "You can probably just sleep in the car tonight. We can talk in the morning when Nate's home." I turned and walked back to the car. We didn't talk much that night. We ended up parked in a gas station lot a few miles away. I curled up under my coat. I cried quietly while Alan stared at the ceiling of the car, eyes wide open. Around 4 a.m., he said, "Let's go home." But I wasn't ready to leave just yet. Before we left Palo Alto, I printed out something at a 24-hour FedEx office. It was a letter. It included screenshots of every message I'd sent to Camila, every ignored confirmation, every voicemail transcription. I added a final note, handwritten. "You knew. You just didn't care." We drove back to their neighborhood just after sunrise. I walked up to their mailbox and slid the envelope inside. Then we drove away. No calls. No texts. Nothing. But I found out later what that envelope set off. We got home 2 days later. Alan didn't say a word the entire drive, except to ask where I wanted to stop for gas. I didn't talk much either. I just kept thinking about how Camila looked when she told us to sleep in our car. No guilt. No shame. Just cold. Like we were nobody. A few days after we got home, Nate finally called. I didn't want to pick up, but Alan handed me the phone. "Mom," Nate said. "What the hell was in the mailbox?" My stomach turned. "You got it." "Camila is furious," he said. "She said you ambushed her." I stayed quiet. Then he said, "Why would you do something like that? Why would you try to make her look bad?" I almost laughed. "She didn't tell you we came?" "She said you showed up without confirming." I finally let it out. I told him everything. Every message I sent. Every time she didn't reply. How we stood on the doorstep after 2 days of driving and were told to sleep in our car. I told him about the gas station, the cold, the way I cried while trying not to wake up his father. He was silent. "She told me the guest room was full of boxes," he finally said. "She said she panicked." "That's not panic," I said. "That's cruelty." He mumbled something about needing to call me back. He didn't. A week passed. Then 2. I didn't hear from him again for over a month. Then I got a message from Nate's aunt, my sister, Mary. She lives in San Jose and sees them sometimes. She texted, "What's going on with you and Camila? She's been telling people you tried to ruin her marriage." That's when I realized what Camila had done. She was going around telling people we showed up uninvited, that I was emotionally unstable, that I had lashed out because I wasn't in control of Nate's life anymore. She told Mary the first had invented texts that I put in the mailbox to manipulate Nate. But here's the thing, Camila didn't know I had copies. I had saved every message on my phone, and I had sent the same screenshots to my email account. I had proof. I even had the voicemail transcription. I called Mary and read her the texts. She was shocked. She said Camila had made it sound like I was obsessed with being involved in Nate's life. That's when I realized Camila had been planting these stories for a while. It wasn't just this trip. It was years of little things. I remembered how, when Nate forgot my birthday last year, he told me Camila said I wanted space. I never said that. When they didn't come for Christmas, Camila told me their son was sick, but Mary said she saw pictures of them at a holiday party that same weekend. It was all starting to make sense. Camila was isolating Nate. Slowly, piece by piece. From us. From his extended family. From anyone who might pull him back to the life he came from. She didn't just forget our visit. She didn't want us there. She didn't want Nate to feel close to us. And she was willing to lie to anyone to keep it that way. Alan and I stopped hearing from Nate after that. Our Christmas gifts were returned. No note, no explanation. But we weren't done. We had one more card to play. And it was going to force Camila to tell the truth, or risk everything she'd been building. I didn't sleep much after Christmas. My mind kept going over every phone call, every visit, every interaction we'd ever had with Camila. I started seeing patterns I hadn't seen before. She always steered conversations. She always answered texts meant for Nate. She kept things vague, distant. And if we ever pushed too hard, she disappeared for weeks. Alan, who's usually the calm one, finally snapped one night. "She's turning him against us," he said. "And he's letting her." He was right. That hurt more than anything. Nate wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man. A father. And he was letting his wife isolate us. Maybe he didn't realize it. Maybe he was just tired and going along to keep the peace. But it didn't matter. He let her make us out to be the problem. That's when Alan said something I hadn't thought of. What if we're not the only ones she's doing this to? So I made a call to Nate's old friend, Jordan. He and Nate were inseparable in college, but over the years they drifted apart. I found Jordan on Facebook and sent a message. He called me that night. "Mrs. M, I've been wondering what happened to Nate," he said. I tried reaching out a few times. Never heard back. I told him a bit of what was going on. I didn't trash Camila, I just said there had been some distance and we were trying to understand why. Jordan said he wasn't surprised. "She never liked me," he said. "Always thought I was a bad influence." After they got married, Nate stopped coming to our group chats. Stopped returning calls. Then Jordan told me something that stopped me cold. He said, "Last year, he told me you were having memory problems. Said you were starting to get confused, and that's why he wasn't in touch much." I nearly dropped the phone. "What?" I asked. He repeated it. "He said you were struggling mentally. That Camila was helping you get care." I felt awful. I didn't want to intrude. That's when it all clicked. Camila had been laying the groundwork. Not just painting me as needy but unstable. Telling people I was confused. That I made things up. That I was losing my grip. That's why she felt so confident lying about the texts. That's why she thought people would believe her over us. She had already poisoned the well. Alan looked like he was going to put his fist through the wall when I told him. We needed to act. But carefully. We didn't want revenge that would just make us look bitter. We wanted the truth out. And in a way that couldn't be dismissed. That's when I remembered something else. Camila had recently started working with a local nonprofit. She'd posted all about it on social media, photos with their staff, smiling next to their director, captions about supporting families in crisis. I did some digging. The organization was respected. Small but connected to bigger names in the Bay Area. She was listed on their website as a community liaison. There was even a blurb praising her commitment to bridging family gaps with empathy and care. The irony almost made me sick. So I made copies of everything. The texts, the email confirmations, the call logs, even Jordan's messages. And then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. One of my texts to Camila, the one where I confirmed our visit date, had the read timestamp still visible. She had read it. And she still told everyone she never saw it. That was proof she couldn't explain away. We printed everything. We compiled it into a single document. Then we wrote a short cover letter, explaining the situation simply and respectfully. No drama, just the facts. Then we sent it anonymously to the nonprofit's director and board. We didn't ask them to do anything. We just wanted them to know. But what happened next? That went way beyond what we expected. It took about 2 weeks. We didn't hear anything directly, but we noticed Camila's social media went quiet. She had been posting regularly about events, family life, even random quotes about truth and energy. Then nothing. Radio silence. Then one afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up, but something in my gut told me to. It was someone from the nonprofit. The woman's voice was steady, polite, but firm. "I'm calling to follow up on the material you sent. We reviewed it internally. There were discrepancies between Ms. Camila's statements and what was documented." I asked if she was being fired. The woman didn't answer directly. "We've taken appropriate steps." Then she said something that made my skin crawl. "We appreciate how respectfully you laid this out. It's clear you were trying to protect your family and your son." That was the moment it hit me. We weren't the only ones Camila had tried to isolate. She had built a public image on values she didn't practice in private. And that image was now cracking. A few days later, Mary, my sister, called again. Her tone was urgent. "Nate's here," she said. "At my house." I almost dropped the phone. "He showed up this morning," she continued. "Alone. He looks wrecked. He said he needs to talk." Alan and I drove down the next day. Nate was waiting on the porch when we arrived. He stood up when we got out of the car but didn't say anything at first. Then he walked over, hugged his father, and just cried. I hadn't seen him cry since he was 12. He apologized, over and over, for believing lies, for not checking things himself, for assuming we were the problem because it was easier. He said Camila admitted she'd lied about the messages, about my mental health, even about our past visits. She told me what she thought I needed to hear, Nate said, and I believed her. He told us things we didn't know, how she controlled his email, his calendar, how she screened calls, how anytime he tried to reconnect with old friends or us, she'd create stress, pick fights, make it feel like drama. It hadn't started that way, but it had grown. Then he said the part that broke my heart. I was ashamed of how I treated you, but I didn't know how to fix it, so I stayed quiet. Alan nodded. That's how people like her win. They make silence feel safer than the truth. We didn't hug right away. It took time. But Nate came home with us that week, stayed in his old room, spent time walking with Alan in the mornings, helped me in the kitchen, just slowly came back. Camila, meanwhile, was unraveling. I heard she was let go from the nonprofit. Her friends started pulling away after the truth spread through Mary's side of the family. Apparently, someone else, a former friend, had also received a version of the letter we sent. I hadn't sent it. I don't know who did. What I do know is that Camila underestimated the quiet ones. We didn't scream. We didn't fight. We just told the truth, in black and white, with no emotion added. And it was enough to bring everything down. But we weren't finished. Not yet. After that week at our house, Nate went back to Palo Alto. Not to reconcile with Camila, but to gather his things. He didn't tell her in advance. He showed up mid-afternoon with 2 friends and a rental truck. She wasn't home when he arrived. When she pulled into the driveway and saw him loading boxes, she flew into a rage. Nate told me later she stood in the front yard, screaming that he was abandoning his family, that I had manipulated him, that she would ruin him if he left. But Nate didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He just kept packing. He told her she had lied, isolated him, and disrespected the people who raised him. He said she didn't get to call it family when she spent years turning him against everyone who ever loved him. Then he got in the truck and drove off. He filed for divorce 2 weeks later. Camila tried to fight. She played the victim. She said he was unstable. She tried to claim he was emotionally abusive, that he'd been manipulated by outsiders. But Nate had something she didn't. Receipts. He submitted copies of the texts, emails, and even the voicemail transcription we gave him. He documented her control over his communication, her lies about my health, and even got statements from people like Jordan, who shared how Camila had kept Nate isolated. By the time it hit court, Camila had burned through most of her goodwill. The nonprofit she'd worked for issued a quiet statement about internal inconsistencies and termination of partnership. Her professional reputation was stained. No one wanted a family support advocate known for tearing families apart. The judge granted Nate full custody of their son. Camila was given supervised visitation every other weekend under professional watch because the court found evidence of manipulative parental behavior. She had tried to frame Nate as unfit. Instead, she showed her true self to the wrong people. The moment Nate walked out of that courtroom, he called me. I was in the garden, pulling weeds. It's over, he said. But it wasn't. Not really. Over the next 6 months, he slowly built a new life. He moved into a small rental with his son, started therapy, reached out to people he'd pushed away, college friends, cousins, even old coworkers. Every week, he'd come by our house, sometimes with his boy, sometimes just for coffee. We talked. Really talked. One evening, we were all sitting at the dinner table when his son, my grandson, looked at me and said, "Grandma, why didn't we come here before?" I didn't answer right away. But Nate did. "Because we made a mistake," he said. "But we're not going to make it again." Camila? She stayed in Palo Alto alone. Last I heard, she'd applied to 3 different nonprofits. None of them called back. Word gets around, especially in those circles. A few old acquaintances of hers, People she once tried to impress with pictures of our grandson had quietly started distancing themselves. She made her world small by choice. Now it was even smaller. I won't pretend everything is perfect. There's still pain. Alan still has nights where he stares out at the yard and says, "I never thought our son would forget who we are." And sometimes I think about that night in the gas station, crying in the front seat of our own car. But the thing is, Camila wanted us erased. She wanted Nate all to herself, under her version of the truth. Instead, she lost everything. And we got our son back. That's the part no one saw coming. That was the real revenge. And it was worth every mile.